welcome to the May 3rd meeting of the Zoning Board of Adjustments and Appeals. First up, we have roll call. Ms. Mayweather.
Here.
Ms. Schaefer.
Here.
Mr. Rashke.
Here.
Mr. Culberson.
Here.
Mr. Kent.
Here.
And Ms. Farrell.
Here.
And Ms. Kodeshi is here. We have before us the meeting minutes from the last meeting.
Make a motion to approve. Second.
We have a motion and a second. Ms. Mayweather. Ms. Schaefer.
Yes.
Mr. Rashke.
Yes.
Mr. Culberson.
Yes.
Mr. Kent.
Yes.
Ms. Farrell.
Aye.
And Ms. Kodeshi approve. I'll now turn it over to our city attorney.
Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the ZBA hearing this morning. Our members on our board are all volunteer members of the community. They are appointed by our city commission. They are not staff members of the city, and they are charged with listening to and hearing requests for variances from our city's land development code, where granting such a variance, where literal enforcement of the code would create an undue or unnecessary hardship, and granting such a variance would not be contrary to public interest. The way the procedures will work this morning, the chair will call each applicant forward. You can either come to the center podium, or if you'd like to take a seat, you can sit there. But if we ask you to please speak in the microphone, because it is difficult to hear, and then you'll be able to present. Please state your name and give a address, a brief description of what you are requesting from the board as it relates to your variance. Our board members will be able to ask any questions they may have, and our city staff will also be able to present any information. If there are any members from our audience that are in the audience that wish to speak for or against a specific variance, they'll be given an opportunity to do so as well. I would ask, if you're planning on speaking before the board this morning, if you will need to go ahead and be sworn in. So if I can get you to stand or raise your right hand. Do you swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give is the whole truth and nothing but the truth? Thank you. Now I'll turn it back over to our chair to call our first case.
Thank you. Our first applicant is Otto Gonzalez. The request is for a 2-foot variance to allow an 8-foot high privacy fence in lieu of the maximum height of 6 feet for residential fences and walls specified by figure 4.4-1 of the Land Development Code in order to construct an 8-foot high fence approximately 86 feet in length along the northern interior side yard property boundary and along the western rear property boundary on the property located at 1837 Cherokee Trail. Can you state your name and address, please?
My name is Otto Gonzalez,
And Laurie Gonzalez.
1837 Cherokee Trail,
Thank you.
Lakeland.
Can you give us a brief description of what your request is for?
So for the past 20 years, we've had this cozy backyard that we've been living in, and then suddenly everything changed next door, which there used to be just a beautiful 8-foot fence. But anyway, a builder now has bought that property, and they've cleared it all out. They've removed their fence, but really was our nice privacy fence, 8-foot fence, and now so we have no fence now. So now suddenly our yard is, I'll consider it being like violated, because it was so nice and beautiful. And then our backyard, our fence is also it's still there. It's 8-foot wood fence that has deteriorated, and it's time to be replaced. And we would like to replace it with the same 8-foot fence on both sides.
And the neighbor in the back of us, so they have a pool with an enclosure, so they're very close to the property line. And as you can see, like our back patio and porch area is very close. So we're kind of looking, without the fence, we'd be looking straight at each other, very close to because we're both close to the property line in the back. So really, what's our side yard is really our backyard, because our porch and everything goes so far into the back and because we're on, we have crawl space, so when you're going into our house, since we're in a historic, when you go into the houses, you're going up like 4 steps into our, so all our houses are raised up. So since we're so close to each other in that way, then, I mean, the fence needs to be higher.
And I do want to note that I think Philip Sear and his team did a really good job of identifying all the key points. So,
And listening, yeah, when they came up.
Good morning. For the record, I'm Philip Scarce, Principal Planner with Community Economic Development. The applicants are seeking a variance to repair and replace the fence along the rear property line, which is the western property line, excuse me, and along the northern property line within a, within a RA1 zoning category. This is a triple lot or a 2 lot and a half lot within the historic Beacon Hill subdivision. This lot right here, just to the north of them, was part of this property here. And what's happening throughout the city is lots that were created prior to July 1950. They are lots of record, and they could, and if there are no encroachments on those, a lot of people, what they're doing is they're finding these infill lots all over the city, not just in Beacon Hill, but just all over the city. We're getting requests a lot, even 50-foot lots and even 40-foot lots. If they were platted prior to 1950, then they are considered lots of record. They just have to meet today's standards. So for, like the applicant said, for 20, 30 years, this has been a vacant lot. There was a 8-foot fence running along the property line that was there before. Now there's a 2-story house being built right next to them. And I'm going to go through the pictures. I'll show you. It's already gone vertical, but when I was out there, it was still the slab. So let me go through the slides. Again, this is a northern property line where there was an 8-foot fence. And then there's an existing 8-foot wood fence here that's in disrepair. They would like to replace that. There is a pool enclosure behind here. They do have some vegetation that runs along here, but the lights and everything, when I was there, you could see I could definitely see how there would be some glare coming in from the neighbors. So this is looking in the side yard, looking north. Against the property. You can see the house being constructed right here. This is looking south to the applicant's home. It was a structure built in the 20s, 4,700 square feet. And this is the 8-foot fence along the back here. And one point I'd like to make, and we've identified this in the staff report, is that there's not technically a typical rear yard. Their side lot here is basically their backyard. And this is the house that's being constructed. It is 7 feet from the property line, and it's a 2-story structure. This is looking. This is looking north. There's a 4-foot fence that separates their front yard from their side yard, but you can see the slab here. And this is an elevation of what's being constructed next to them. It's a 2-story house. My staff report says that the dwelling shows 5 first-story windows, but that's incorrect. There's just 5 windows on this elevation. This orange line represents where a 6-foot fence would be, or how high a 6-foot fence would be, and then this pink line shows that's what if you allow the 8-foot. So it would give them more privacy. The 8-foot fence here, there's nothing we can do about the top floor windows. But again, it's 7 feet from the property line. And I don't think I have any more pictures. Nope. So I'm getting my recommendation here. The applicant, again, like I said, the applicant does not have a traditional backyard due to non-conforming or rear yard setback of the existing home. The north side of this lot is essentially their backyard, which is directly adjacent to the new dwelling. And this, as I showed you, results in a loss of privacy. In addition, the applicant has an existing deteriorating 8-foot fence along the rear property line, and they would like to maintain this fence height for additional privacy because there's a pool enclosure next door. And then granting the variance would not allow the applicant, granting the variance would allow the applicant to replace or repair that existing 8-foot fence. The hardship suffered is not the result of the action taken by the applicant. The request for relief is reasonable and proportionate to the degree of hardship, and the subject property does not have a traditional backyard, and the loss of privacy with the construction of a new two-story single-family dwelling unit next door. Staff recommends that the variance be considered for approval to allow the construction of the 8-foot high fence for 86 feet in length along the northern interior sideline and for 125 feet along the rear property line. And that's our recommendation, and we stand for any questions you may have.
Is there any comments from neighbors or?
We did not.
Okay. We actually, our neighbor, because we're a very close neighborhood, so several asked if they needed to come, and we were like, no, they don't, because they were all like, oh, we hope that it goes through, so.
So this is your property looking north?
Yes.
Yes.
All right, so the fence that's there now, is that what's in your front yard?
Yeah,
Okay.
that's our front. So there was the 8-foot fence
I'll go back to,
separated
That's-
us.
that's the fence right here.
Right, can you
that
go
saw.
back to the-
This is the
So
8-foot.
the 8-foot was there, actually, and if,
Can you go back to the pictures, please?
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
so, like, because our neighbor, their 8-foot fence that was connected to now because they separated the lots. Their 8-foot fence in their yard is still just kind of attached to nothing at this point.
Yeah.
Because when the builder came in, we didn't realize that, I mean, they came in to clear and they tore the fence and all the plantings and bushes and everything
The
completely.
photo prior to that actually shows the existing 8-foot fence.
So yeah, we were kind of like, ooh, we came home one day and we're like, it's all gone.
Yeah. Yeah,
And
there's,
that's in our rear.
yeah, there's an 8-foot fence right here.
Yeah. So that's the neighbor's.
Front, that's their front
That's
fence.
their front where it connected. So it went across and then,
Went
because
across.
they're kind of in the same boat we are, where the side yard is really their front, or their backyard rather.
Their main yard.
Yeah.
So the 8-foot's going to connect to the metal fence that's currently there?
So what we've asked is to, right, so they'll have the chain link in the front and that little piece. I don't know why that was ever there, but the
Bring it up to the chain link fence.
yeah, so that little corner, so that little tiny bit will go away, and then so that corner is where the
Start
wood,
here.
or the new fence would start, and then would go. Because that's where the wood was.
Another point is, right there in that spot, that's where they're putting their AC unit, is on that side as well.
So yeah, we found that out too.
Well,
Which
yeah,
I
in
guess
the
because
drawing.
it's so tight, because of the way the property is, it's not very wide. So, like on the other side, where they're gonna have the driveway, there's not gonna be, I don't think, any plantings, because it goes directly from property line to the house. So they can barely fit a driveway in.
Is there an 8-foot fence on the south side currently?
Right, where we're,
On
our
our,
neighbor,
on our side, there's a PVC fence, and it's 6 foot, but there's no, I'd just say a privacy issue because
It's
our
garage to
garage
garage.
side. It's our garage side, so it's not really a.
Thank you.
So for the city, typically when we see the city giving a recommendation to approve, it's due to topography and slopes and things like this. And here we have the city recommending approval because of a new neighboring structure, which I don't recall in recent memory, the city approving that, but that seems to be a very disparate set of events occurring. And was there any discussion inside the city as to whether to approve or not approve? Because there was not a topography such.
Oh, definitely. We were on the fence, no pun intended, about this one, being that it would, set a precedent for, for a height. Because, again, all of our recommendations, like you mentioned, had been for elevation changes. But this would, when you go out there, it was such a drastic I wish I had gone out there and take pictures of when they've gone to elevation, but it is a very drastic change after so many years when you had a lot that wasn't developed. You had an 8-foot fence there, and all of a sudden you have a 2-story house, with 5 windows on one side looking down on you. So,
I do have a picture of what the fence used to look like.
Here's more, but
okay, I can put those on there.
Yeah, we can put them up there.
so this is what it looked like before.
That was an 8-foot fence that was taken out before they started construction of this home.
You said the contractor removed that fence without your permission and the landscaping?
Yeah, I mean, we didn't know, because, and when we called, they were like, well, it was on the property line.
Okay.
And
So they're like-
they took the fence down, and we were like, nobody told us, and we're like,
We have a dog.
we have a dog, and
It would have been nice to know, so I had to tell the kids, do not let the dog out at all, because there's no fence and everything. And they and we were like, are you planning on, and they're like, nope, we're not planning on doing anything.
I'm sure they want us to put up a fence because they don't.
They don't wanna incur the
I mean, they
cost.
don't have any space to, if they put air conditioner on that side.
Right.
So that side, the west fence is still existing. Though it's owned by your rear neighbors.
No, we own that.
You own that, but it is 8 foot and in disrepair.
Yep.
Yeah, I mean, at this
And
point, right.
this one on the north side was 8 foot. The ownership is not known, but it was taken down.
It definitely was their fence because it was a wood fence, and they also had a chain link fence. So it's like really weird. They took both down.
Was this lot owned by the neighbor or owned by a third party?
So what happened was that the house and that were together. They were one property. The owner, when she went to sell, she wanted a certain price and she couldn't get that price. So she said, I'm going to separate and sell the house separate from the lot.
Okay.
So then somebody bought the house, and then a builder came, bought the lot.
And that lot was the most amazing pool house, and it was
It was a
just,
pool, so somebody just bought a pool.
The pool was like the whole length of that property was practically the pool. So it was a beautiful, and as you can see, it was the privacy was there. It was like a little we had our own sanctuary of amazing, vegetation and privacy.
So yeah, so when they came and cleared it, they cleared the fence, all the bushes, all the stuff. It was very drastic.
Is there a historic preservation board for this area? Is reservation, is that what this area is called?
This is the Beacon Hill Historic District.
Beacon Hill. Is there a historic preservation board?
Yes, there is, and I spoke with Emily Foster, the historic preservation planner. As far as the fence style, the material, the height, she did not have any issues. The board granted the variance to allow that height, so she did not have any comment. And again, just to reiterate, what's unique about the property is the age of the home here. Because it was built before there was zoning, it has a much smaller rear yard setback that would be allowed today. I believe today the current code would require at least a 25-foot minimum, and it appears the house is built to maybe a 10-foot rear yard setback. So they effectively have no rear yard, and the house was built on, a double lot here, so they have been using that side yard as their outdoor effective rear yard there.
Is there a picture of the existing fence on the west side?
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's currently 8 feet, correct?
That's currently there.
And we would, yeah, that's what, we just want to replace what's existing.
Are you replacing it with wooden or PVC?
So when we talked to fence companies, they said wood would be more expensive. And now that we've had to go through this, we also said that it would probably be better to do PVC so that we don't have to do this again.
We're thinking the almond color.
Right, because we have a Spanish style house. So
And
we
then-
didn't think that white would look right. with
And they have the PVC already on the south side.
Yeah.
Move to approve.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Ms. Mayweather? Approve. Ms. Schaefer?
Yes.
Mr. Rashke?
Yes.
Mr. Culberson?
Yes.
Mr. Kent?
Yes.
Ms. Farrell? Aye. And Ms. Konishi approves. I have your variance.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Gracias.
Our next applicant is, the applicant is Steve Staley. The request is for a 4-foot variance to allow a 6-foot rear yard setback in lieu of the required 10-foot minimum setback specified by PUD 5917, and a 12.24% variance to allow a maximum lot coverage of 47 1/4 to allow for the construction of a new screen room with a hard roof on the property located at 3527 Highland Fairways Boulevard. Can you state your name and address for the record, please?
Yes, Stephen Staley. The address is 3527 Highland Fairways Boulevard. And it says there it's a hard roof. It's actually a screen roof.
Okay. Can you give
More
us
like a pool enclosure.
Okay. So you're looking to put a screened-in enclosure on the back existing patio?
Yes, ma'am.
Good morning. Damaris Stahl, Senior Planner with Community Economic Development. The subject property is zoned in PUD 5917 within the suburban neighborhood context district. This request is actually for a 4-foot variance. I know the slide said 5, but it's 4 feet to allow for a 6-foot rear yard setback in lieu of the 10-foot minimum for the screen enclosure. The subject property consists of a 54-foot wide and 90-foot deep lot with an existing 1,600 square foot home. The existing home was actually constructed in the Polk County jurisdiction prior to it being annexed into the city in 1998. The proposed request is to obtain, the relief to allow for the construction of a new 16 by 20 foot screen enclosure. While the notice was for a screen room with a hard roof, as the applicant mentioned, it was since clarified after the notice was sent that it's just a screen enclosure. So it's very similar to a pool screen-in room. Under the Highland Fairways PUD, the principal and accessory structures are subject to the minimum rear 10-foot setbacks. So there's a couple of photos here. This is the rear property boundary facing west. And this here is just facing southeast. And this here's the southeast corner of the property. And this is just along the golf cart path, so that way you can see, the distance a little better. The relatively small lot in Highland Fairways is, the fact that it butts the golf course is the applicant's justification for the request. If Highland Fairways were zoned in a comparable conventional single-family zoning districts such as RA3 or RA4, a screen enclosure without a hard roof could be as close as 3 feet to the side and rear lot lines, but their PUD specifies, the 10-foot minimum, so which is part of the reason for the variance. The specific hardship is suffered is not due to any action taken by the applicant. The amount of relief requested is minimum amounts necessary to accommodate the screen enclosure, and therefore staff recommends that the request be considered for approval.
So the screen patio is going to actually extend beyond the width of the actual concrete slab, is that correct? Is the concrete slab going to be adjusted?
No, ma'am, it's going to be the exact same size as what you see.
Oh, okay.
What is this neighborhood called?
Highland Fairways Mobile Home Park.
It's a retirement community. It was begun in the county in the early 80s. City annexed it in back in '98. Initially, it was started as a manufactured home community, but the developer in 1986, they petitioned the county to change it to a conventional single-family home community. So it's kind of mixed. There are about maybe, I believe, maybe 46 or so manufactured homes there, but the bulk of the property, 600 plus homes are single-family there. But it was marketed as a retirement community, primarily for middle class, retirees like that. So it was the little size of the 40 grand they were selling back then. Somewhere to Sandpiper in that respect, very kind of modest, small lots. But this being Florida, people tend to want to spend a good part of the year outdoors and enjoy the weather when it's nice there. So occasionally we see similar requests for variances.
Is there an HOA with this development?
Yes, sir.
And was this taken before them for approval, or?
Yes, sir. And they approved it.
Okay.
Is there anyone from the community who wants to speak, or were there any objections from anyone? Yes, sir. Can you please come forward and state your name and address?
Good morning.
Good morning.
My name is Joe Alessandro. I'm the president of the Homeowners Association for Highland Fairways, 3222 Highland Fairways Drive. I received, I didn't receive it, I had neighbors contact me, residents contact me regarding this variance because we knew nothing about it. We did approve, we have a process in Highland Fairways, it's called an architectural request. Whenever a resident wants to do something to the outside of their property, it has to be approved by the board of directors. And in 2020, this particular resident asked to extend their property, their patio, by X amount of feet, which we approved. We don't have a follow-up process. As long as I've been here, we've never had a follow-up process. And this was in 2020. In 2022, they requested that this birdcage enclosure be put up, and we approved it until we saw the variance, and then we couldn't understand why there was a variance because we approved the one in 2020. So when we went and did the actual measurement ourselves, we found that the property owner exceeded what was approved in 2020, not to our knowledge. So the extension of this patio was far larger than what was approved, expected to be approved by the board in 2020. So we're totally against this variance, number one, for that reason. And the second reason is if you look at the photographs, you can see there are no other bird cages along that side there. This runs along the golf course. It's very close to the golf course. The out of bounds is probably maybe 15 feet away from that enclosure. And I don't think this would be a very appealing look for this side of the street here, for these residents.
Are there any other that run along that same side or screen?
No, not along that one section there, no. I think you can see by the photographs, there's like 4 homes or 5 homes there that you won't see anything there because they all need variances. And we usually do not approve any variances. We're anything that infringes on either common ground or with any right of way with regards to utilities or anything like that.
Can you describe what you approved versus what is there now?
Yes, in 2020, the request was for a 10 feet by 15 feet patio. And I have the documents here with the signatures from 2020. And then in 2022, and again, it was approved because we didn't think of anything about it. It was a screened-in deck from 16 by 23. Well, we're going back 2 years, so we just figured that's what was approved in 2020 until we got the variance. And then when we went back and measured, it's like 16 by 23 was not the original approval. The 15 by 20 was, or excuse me, the 15 by 10 feet was. So again, it exceeded even our architectural design and our request form. And like I said, we don't really do a follow-up when a resident puts something in. Basically, we trust our residents to put in what they say they're going to put in. And we don't, I guess we're going to have to learn from this that we're going to have to do a follow-up process from here on in for any architectural request.
So the existing pad does not connect to the house, correct?
Well, there's a partial concrete pad and then there's patios or pavers.
So I'm looking at grass between the pavers and the house, correct? Or is there something I'm not seeing?
I don't think there's grass there. I have a couple of photographs myself.
Looks like
No, well, there is grass, but yeah, there's grass on the outside of the patio area there, up against the house. Yes.
It looks like it's grass on that side, but if you go back around, it connects the concrete to the house.
And I think there's a couple other residents that wanted to speak.
So hypothetically, if the slab had conformed to what you had thought it was, would you have an objection to a screened porch?
We probably won't object to it because there would be no need for a variance. It would have fit the established measurements that they previously gave us in 2020.
You said there were other residents who wanted to speak?
Yes.
Ramona,
Yeah, we need to switch. If you've come in later, if you're planning on speaking, I need to swear you in. So if you don't mind standing and raising your right hand if you're planning to speak. I think you were here earlier, correct? Sorry? You were sworn in earlier, I believe. Yes, I'm talking to these women in the back. Hi. If you could raise your right hand, do you swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give is the whole truth and nothing but the truth? I do. Thank you.
My name is Beverly Pote. I live right next door.
Ma'am, can you pull the microphone just so we can hear you? Thank you.
You state your name and address, please?
Pardon me?
Your name and your address?
My name is Beverly Pote. I live right next door to the patio. In that I brought a golf course property for an investment in our older years. I'm afraid of what's going to happen here that's going to devalue my property. When I talked to the woman in the office, she told me they were putting on a bird cage over this thing that she wants to put up in that. And the papers we got from them shows they're putting up a hard roof. Now, where I live, before I could see all the way down the golf course. If she does this, and I won't be able to see that in that, and I resent the fact that she's taken away what I've had for 30 years. So I'm asking you not to approve this.
Okay, just to clarify, it is a bird cage. The applicant clarified it is not a hard roof. Initially, it was not clear from the application, but it would not have a roof. So just to make clear, that's what they're asking for, is just an unroofed screen enclosure.
But what would stop her from a year from now or 2 years from now to close that in with windows and everything? You wouldn't see anything.
They wouldn't be able to get their permit for that.
Okay.
So,
Okay.
but just, okay.
Thank you. Thank you.
One thing I do have to say, the other neighbors down the right side of the fairway also, they already have the enclosures themselves too, which are bird cages with screened roofs.
Just to clarify, so if this were granted, would the screen cage be freestanding or would it be connected to the house?
No, sir, it'd be connected to the home. There's
Okay.
going to be, where you see the grass, we'd pour a ribbon footer to connect it there to the house. The other end actually has a smaller slab that goes all the way to the house and connects to the pavers.
So would you pour a new slab where that grass is? Would you fill that in?
Yes, sir. No. She wants that so her dogs can
Okay.
use that area. That's why I say from that point where the pavers stop, where you see the grill, I think is a grill.
Sir, you've got to speak into the microphone. I'm sorry.
I'm sorry. Where you see the grill, where the grass is, there's going to be a ribbon footer poured there for it to connect to the house on each side.
If I may briefly, the gentleman from the HOA, may I see that document that you had? Or if
We
you
could
put it on the screen, either way,
Yeah.
it's fine. Just about the page where the original dimensions are, or the filed for dimensions.
Oh, I'm sorry. But I can put this up here too as well.
Can you point out where the
Go to the next page.
dimensions are?
Yeah. Right there.
So 15 by 10.
That was from 2020.
Initially, when this came in, when we thought it was for hard roof, staff was not going to support it because that was a very large covered screen room. So we were a bit concerned with, what the rationale was for that and how that got approved, but we were not aware, of the history with the HOA approval, which appears they were only approved for a smaller patio than what they're showing on their site plan.
So Matt, if I can ask a question, if this would have been what they had as a slab, then would it meet the requirements if they, by right, to put a screen enclosure because they wouldn't have to get a variance?
Correct. They would be probably 12 feet plus from the back property line, so that would not require variance.
But like I said, they approved it after that here recently for the 16 by 24.
I think that what they were approving was the dimensions of this patio, because they didn't actually go out and measure and understand the dimensions of the patio that had actually been poured. I think that's their argument.
I understand, but we wouldn't be in this situation if it wasn't approved. We wouldn't have filed for the variance.
Yeah, based upon what I see right now, I make a motion to disapprove or to deny the variance.
Second.
I just have a quick comment. On the justification, it says that golf balls. I know it may seem small, but, so is the owner having problems with golf balls coming in on
Yes, ma'am, hitting the house.
hitting the house?
And she can't use the patio, basically. Bugs, lizards, blah, blah, blah.
So if this is denied, I mean, their option would be to pull the screen room 4 feet further back. You basically just have to redesign it to take out 4 feet, correct? You could still install it?
Would she go 4 feet back instead of the full 16? She'd be allowed to do that?
Yes. She'd have to just be a minimum of 10 feet from the back property line.
Yeah, it's going to cut it down to like 8 feet in the width, which means it's going to be very skinny and long, so.
We had two motions for denial. We had a motion and a second. Put it to the vote. Ms. Mayweather?
Approved.
Ms. Schaefer?
Approved to deny.
Mr. Rashke?
Yes to deny.
Mr. Culberson?
Approved it and deny.
Mr. Kent?
Approved to deny.
And Ms. Farrell?
Approved to deny.
And I agree. For to deny.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Our next applicant is Doris Lyons. This is a 2-foot variance to allow an 8-foot high privacy fence in lieu of a maximum height of 6 feet for residential fences and walls specified by Figure 4.4-1 of the Land Development Code in order to construct an 8-foot high fence approximately 122 feet in length along the west rear yard property boundary.
Hi.
Hello.
I'm not Doris. I'm Kyle Klein, 2720 Coventry Avenue. I'm the son-in-law, and I wanted on the record that I left Boca Grande at 6 a.m. to attend this for my mother-in-law. So,
Good morning.
thank you. I don't know much. I think staff should fill in.
Yeah, we did get, for the record, Todd Vargo, Senior Planner with Community and Economic Development. We did get a message this morning that Mrs. Lyons wasn't going to be able to make it. I think her dog had to have emergency surgery or something, and that's why Mr. Klein is here.
They're a good son-in-law.
So yeah, best wishes go out to her dog. Hopefully everything's okay. The subject property at 2115 Benford Avenue is in the Lake Hollingsworth neighborhood. It is improved with a 1-story single-family detached home that was constructed in 1961. It's zoned RA1, single-family residential, and in the urban neighborhood. The purpose of the request, as you heard from the description, is to obtain variance relief to allow for the construction of a new 8-foot-high PVC privacy fence along the west side of the property, which is the rear yard, for a distance of 122 feet. As most of us know, the Land Development Code only allows a 6-foot maximum height for fences and walls located in the interior side and rear yards of property zoned for residential uses. So this is a request to go 2 feet higher than they are currently allowed. The justification pertains to the presence of 2 non-conforming fences located on the adjacent properties to the west, and this is about the property line. So there's one property that's about 40 feet where they abut to the rear, and then the other property is about 82 feet that abuts to the rear. So they each already have an 8-foot fence. Here's maybe a better look, but yeah, so here's the property line between the two. This is the property that has 40, that meets the subject property at along 40 feet of the back property line. And this 8-foot fence is certainly in a bit of disrepair. So Mrs. Lyons certainly would like to block that, the view of that off. And then to the right, or in here, is the 8-foot fence that runs 82 feet of her back property line. And we do have a letter, or the owner of this fence contacted us and said that he is not in opposition to Mrs. Lyons' variance. He fully supports Mrs. Lyons' request for the 8-foot fence. So what Mrs. Lyons would like to do is build a pool in her backyard, which you can see here, and then line her rear yard with an 8-foot PVC fence, because she doesn't want to see the tops of these wooden fences over a 6-foot fence. It would be aesthetically displeasing. And her 8-foot fence, her 8-foot PVC fence would completely block both fences, this one that's in a state of disrepair, and then this other fence, and would also provide her with some comfort too if these fences were ever removed, that she would have an 8-foot PVC fence. There is no grade change. The primary hardship suffered by the applicant is aesthetic in nature. You know, she just doesn't want to see the change in materials if she had a 6-foot fence and then see 2 foot of wood on top or above her 6-foot fence. As a secondary justification, the 40-foot linear feet of decaying fence here is a visual nuisance, so she wouldn't want to see that either.
Todd, just to clarify, that fence is 7 feet high. It's about a foot lower than the other one, it appears.
Yeah, you can see right, yeah, I'm sorry, I didn't mention that this, I think I may have mistakenly said that is 8 feet, but here is the 8-foot fence that runs 82 feet of her backyard, and you can see that this fence is about a foot shorter.
But it may have started at 8 foot, and it's just...
That's a good point. It may have been 8 foot at one time, and now is but because we're surrounded by 8 foot, or we're 8 foot against an 8-foot fence, a proposed 8-foot fence against an existing 8-foot fence, the public isn't really harmed by this. So we believe the requested relief is reasonable and proportionate to the degree of hardship suffered by the applicant, and approval would not be contrary to the public interest. Again, this is in her rear yard. The public would never see this. Provided there are no substantive objections from adjacent property owners, and we do have this property owner contacted us and said he's in support of the variance, we recommend the request for relief be considered for approval. And I'll just, again, like Philip said during the first case, you know, we talked about this as a staff, and it's just like, again, while there's no grade change, aesthetic-wise, we can see where it'd be much nicer to see your 8-foot privacy fence, PVC privacy fence, you know, against your pool, and not have that change of materials if we were to deny the variance, and she would have a 6-foot PVC fence and then see 2 feet of wood above it, especially on that section. But again, yeah. So we do recommend approval, and I'll stand for any questions.
What type of fence is on the north and south side?
You know what? I don't. The chain link? Yeah.
So it's not a privacy fence currently? No. So she wants to put in a pool and wants privacy.
Sir, if you could just come to the microphone for a second. No, you're fine.
North and
2 of
south.
the 3 are not private.
Right, north and south is 4 foot, I believe, 4-foot chain link with vegetation.
Yeah, I believe this is her 4-foot chain link, isn't it? I think she told me that it's hers, and it would be taken down, at least this side, and put up the 8-foot on the rear at least. She didn't mention to me any plans about the north or the south property line, but if she's taking the 4-foot chain link down, I guess I'm supposing, You know, if she's taking the 4-foot chain link down along the rear, I imagine she's probably taking it along the north and south as well. But because there is no existing, her neighbors don't have existing fences, she could put up a 6-foot fence and not have the aesthetically displeasing change of materials. Yeah, I apologize, but since the variance was just for the rear fence, when I went out and took the pictures and spoke with her, that's pretty much all we talked about. So I don't know what her plans are for the north and the south property lines.
And the reason we have a 6-foot, if you could go to the next picture where we see the more healthy fence, thank you. Is that, the reason we have a 6-foot guidance in our code is because that is a very subjectively imposing fence, is that? And that's really not where Lakeland wants to go, correct? Or is there other reasons why it's 6-foot maximum?
I was here back in 2009 when the code was changed. Prior to 2009, the code allowed 8 feet by right in backyards there without permits.
Mm-hmm.
So any fences that you see there that are higher than 6 feet, they were done prior to that time there. And the reason for the change is what you described. A lot of it depends on how they're designed and landscaping, other elements, you know, whether or not they're acceptable there, and again, some of it can be personal taste. But after some discussion, it was basically staff agreed that that we would only allow them through variance, based on individual circumstances. So typically that was based on slope, but there have been other cases where you've had a nuisance, something next door that has created a problem, where we have also graded them as well.
Not that we see a lot of these, we see a lot of fence stuff, certainly, but it seems like a lot of people would be happy with 7. A lot of people are unhappy with 6. 8 seems imposing. I think we'd see a lot fewer especially with the grade changes. 7 to me seems like magic. Now, we're not proposing anything change, but this is tough, yeah.
I mean, in this case, what's unique is the applicant's rear parking line that abuts 2 other properties, and you have 2 different styles of fences, different height, different condition there. So I think their intent is they want to have a uniform buffer back there. They prefer to look at their own 8-foot high PVC fence than have to see the other fences that the neighbors installed previously. So it would be up for you to decide whether that's warranted or maybe there's some other compromise available.
I would agree with you, but I think that since it is in the backyard, it's not seen by the public, it's only seen by the resident themselves or the neighbors to the back, and they already have those fences.
And she's having to deal with 2 separate properties with different fences.
Right. Mm-hmm. Right.
And again, the neighbor of the owner of this fence that runs 82 feet along her back property line is in support of her variance request.
I'd make a motion to approve the request.
We have a motion
Second.
and a second. Ms. Mayweather?
Yes, approved.
Ms. Raschke?
Yeah.
I'm sorry, Ms. Schaefer?
Yes.
Mr. Raschke?
Yes.
Mr. Culberson?
Yes.
Mr. Kent?
No.
And Ms. Farrell? Approved. And Ms. Cornish approves, so it's approved. Thank you. Do we have any unfinished business? We have new business, we have a new member.
Yes, just wanted to introduce Gioa Farrell. She was approved by the City Commission last month as a full-time member for a 3-year term, so she will be joining us here, and we'd like to give her a warm welcome.
Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone. It's an honor.
Do we have any other business to discuss?
I believe that's it.
Okay, we are adjourned.
Okay, thank you.